Great. Well, I'm really pleased to have Alan Klosowski and David Yunker. Alan came from Denver today, and Alan from across town, right, at the Tennessean. I'm Matt Dorenzo. I'm the regional editor for Journal Register Company. Been in the news lately. Anyone have any good bankruptcy jokes? Anyone? No? And the Northeast editor for Digital First Media. And on that front, I'll be selling snake oil at a table outside later too, if you want. But no, but on a serious note, is there anyone from Tribune Company here? Okay, good. So I like to joke with my colleagues at Tribune in Connecticut that we're so much faster and more efficient at Journal Register Company. We've filed bankruptcy twice in the time that it's taken them to merge once. But on a serious note, I mean, we're all here concerned about the industry, probably tired about some of the stuff that has gone on in the past couple of years. But we all have an investment in figuring out the business model and making that work. And one example of that is this bankruptcy stuff. So Tribune has spent $230 million, $219 million in 4 years on lawyers around bankruptcy. And I did the math on that, and that is the salary, that's the annual salary of about 5,000 reporters. So that's what's at stake to figuring out the business model. And as editors, we all have a seat at that table. On that positive note, David, you want to talk about, so we're going to talk about how to, we heard it's Social Media Friday, we heard all this stuff about how to do it and best practices, but how do you measure not only brand performance and ROI and put numbers to that, but also individual performance and performance management and stuff like that. So they're going to talk about some other best practices and then a little bit about how you measure that. So.
I can do this presentation. So I just kind of brought a few examples that we've done at the Tennessean that sort of stood out in terms of, I guess, success and also engagement. I mean, I feel like it's really about just sort of trying to engage the community and sort of be a part of the conversation. Our editor for engagement, Nice Lavender, who's actually in San Francisco, headed up a lot of these projects. But so the first one that we did, and we sort of did a similar one as well. But so this first one, we basically started with sort of engaged reporters, editors in the newsroom, just sort of sent out a survey with sort of like almost like Mad Libs, like APME, this excites me, etc., and sort of just open-ended, see what we got. Sort of piled it all together, and then turn it into this poster. So we're just sort of try to engage them. There was actually a community festival in East Nashville a couple months ago. So we took the poster, lots of blank sheets saying, with various open-ended questions, and see what we could get. So out of that, we got this. Totally simple. I mean, we're not. This is not, exactly like high tech, but engage the community, trying to get them thinking about, what matters to them, what their thoughts are, and how do they compare to ours. So it was sort of a fun way just to sort of kind of engage the community, I guess not necessarily in a social, but like in a social way, like in an actual like face-to-face social way. So it turned out, really well. We actually had great responses for it, and it was quite good actually. And so then we went back and did the same thing with the community for the poster. So we posted on Facebook, we posted on Twitter, with our most engaged users. We've got some we actually use Spreadfast, which is a kind of a social analytics platform, and it's sort of your most engaged Twitter followers, your most engaged Facebook users. So we sort of reached out to them and say, okay, you guys fill out these questions. You say you are. What do you love? What do what's important to you? And it was we got a really good response from them. And it's interesting, I feel like one thing that's important in social media is realizing that our audience is not that much different than we are, and sort of pulling back the mask and getting back from behind the masthead and sort of being a part of the community. And I feel like this was sort of a quick, easy way to do that. That turned out to be really fun, and we kind of we had the Tennessean poster in our newsroom, and then this one, you know, it's on our Facebook, and we're sort of, you know, like, feel free to share it and, you know, post it in various parts of the community. So that was one sort of engagement piece that turned out really well from our end and from the community. Another one that we did. Oh, and then in terms of this is a screenshot of Spreadfast. It was the 5th most engaged piece we had on Facebook in 6 months. So, you know, people love talking about themselves and they love being a part of it. So I think, you know, as journalists, it's important to kind of keep the community conversation going, even if it's about something as simple as, you know, what do you love, what do you like, what's important to you, what are the issues that matter. I think it can lead to a lot of, you know, other parts of journalism. So
can you explain what this program is? I think.
Yes. So basically, I mean, it's sort of like, it's sort of vast, but it's sort of like Hootsuite or TweetDeck or anything else. I mean, you can schedule tweets and Facebook posts, and but also, you know, it measures, you know, how well it does, what kind of audience you're getting on those posts, and, you know, who's talking about it, you know, engaged users. The only thing that this particular sort of piece was behind was the Goodlettsville Little League, which the entire, like, we had a Little League team that just, you know, was incredible here, and I think the community really got behind that and sort of wanted to join the conversation. But I mean, it really seemed to resonate. So there was that, and then so then, you know, another simple thing, sort of just posting out something, again, simple but engaging. You know, what do you love about fall? What, you know, we started having some fall-like temperatures a couple weeks ago, and it was, you know, so at night, sort of just put it out there, like, what do you love about fall? What's important to you? And we got all kinds of responses, like, you know, Nashville is just, they love fall, and it was funny. There was an editor who came through the other day who was saying that, you know, Nashville is fall, so, you know, whereas Atlanta is spring. So it really sort of resonated. So we got all these responses, and we ended up turning it into a reverse published, you know, print piece. So it sent us your photos, sent us what you feel about it. So it engaged on a social level, but also ended up becoming kind of a print thing, which was nice. And then we also have this, which on the right here, we have it's sort of a tool on our website. It's called Nashville Self-Portrait, and it's basically users in the community can just upload photos, and they're organized by popularity and tag, and it's almost like our own Flickr. And so we asked for fall photos, and we got those, which, you know, sort of helped create the centerpiece. And then, I mean, the engagement on that one, you know, it was 5th. So I think I just wanted to give a couple visual examples of just things we did socially that really seemed to take off, that weren't difficult, but really just seemed to be successful. So those were the only visuals I had. At least I'm gonna turn it over to Alan.
Thanks, everybody. So my name is Alan Kosowski. I work for Digital First Media. I came from a background at the Denver Post. We started their first social media team at the Denver Post, where we actually went through. When I got there, they had no social media strategy at all. They didn't know what to do with it, and we've done some pretty amazing things with it since then. Working as part of Digital First Media, kind of give you a background, a little bit on who I am and what Digital First Media is, in case you don't know at this point. Does anybody not know anything about Digital First Media? Okay. Basically, we are a kind of a mashup, would you say, of Journal Register Company and Media News Group, where we're sharing talent across 2 organizations. And we've got 55 million monthly web users. We have over 368 million web page views. We have a mobile audience of about 105 million page views per month, and a social media audience right now about 1.6 million across the footprint and growing. 772,000 Facebook fans, which is, you know, we still think is on the low end, but we think that it's a pretty good start in the social media space, and a pretty big print audience across the 18 states that we serve. So in total, we have quite a few journalists that are out there in the field, in a variety of different markets, everything from the size of Denver Post to San Jose Mercury News, down to papers in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, which are smaller and more community focused. So lots of differences in approaches, tool sets, types of things that you can and can't cover, what engages the community. I'm going to talk a little bit here about our social media rules. This is great. John Payton has put our 3 social media rules, and I know at the AP there's a different set of slightly more restrictive rules, but ours are 1, 2, and 3, and they're all blank. Basically, I think it can kind of be summed up of don't make an ass of yourself on social media and serve the community. And we're seeing that by giving the journalists the power to do this and the training that they need to do things well, that they've really responded well and have taken a lot of initiative on their own. So one of the things that we've done that's helped us drive social media success on our side was really investing a social media team in a way that I think many newspapers and news organizations don't think about. We actually have a multi-tiered team that is composed of both an operations team. Those are people that understand the tool sets, the analytics, the reporting, the way to build certain things through tool sets like Shoutlet, the way to implement new tools like Geophedia, which is really interesting if you guys haven't worked on that one, that allows you to enable the reporters to pull all of the stories within a geographic, or all of the social media within a geographic radius for a time period, which we've used to do things like cover the theater shooting out in Aurora. So we have an editorial team. We have a sales and marketing team that's driving a multi-million-dollar social media business for us. While JRC may be having its troubles, publicly with the bankruptcy, social media is not an area for us. It's actually our fastest growing revenue line in digital sales right now. So it's driving a lot of investment that we can then turn around and take that sales and turn that back into tools and audience growth for our editorial teams so they can continue to speak for a wider and wider audience. We have marketing teams that are dedicated to marketing on social media, and then the operations piece. And as a business, our goal is to have 100% of our journalists that we can get, I mean that's the goal, to be social media fluent. So the goal is not to have that one person in your newsroom that's your social media editor that everything gets passed through. It's when something big happens, everybody needs to be able to work in coordination. They need to understand the rules, they need to understand the community, they need to understand how to get the story out there, and they need to serve the community in a way that's different than it was even 5 years ago. One of the things that we have, I mentioned that social media is a multi-million-dollar business for us across the footprint, and we do a lot of social agency services. We work with customers, we work with, we take our editorial kind of thing, the lessons that we learn in editorial, and we have all of these services that we provide customers, which help drive the revenue that allow us to reinvest back into the team. I know that we talked to the keynote speaker here today, did a wonderful job, but one of her pieces, how do we pay for all of this? Well, there's a lot of ways to actually pay for all of this and increase your reach and reach new audiences. So let's just kind of take it down and not talk about digital first media. If we just talk about Denver Post is a good example. It's where I started, and I've got a lot of familiarity with their particular programs. So this is an older slide. I apologize. My data guy was out of the office yesterday and didn't pull the new slide. So I had to use a previous one. We've actually grown here. This is from January. In January, you can see we had about 130,000 Facebook fans at the Denver Post. We're at 182, 183,000 right now. So since January, they've already grown pretty significantly, over 40,000 Facebook fans in that period. As you talk about measuring success, one of the things that you have to understand is where do you stand in your marketplace? And this is an analysis that we run. We don't run just where do we stand in our marketplace. We also run numbers on where do we stand nationally. What does our engagement look like next to our peers? How do we compete against the TV stations? And so from January, you can actually see KDVR, which is the second blue graph there. That's one of the better, not the biggest TV station, but one of the TV stations that executes really well on social media. Channel 9 News, which is actually further down there, is one of the bigger television stations. But these are our competitors, as well as bloggers, radio stations. We look at all of these in our market and we say, where do we stand? How do we engage the community? What are they doing? We look at this every month. If one of our competitors has a huge jump, we're going to be all over that, looking to see what was it that they did? What is the lesson that we can learn there? How do we execute as well as they executed last month? And how do we do it better? As you can see, the red ones are ours. So some of our top accounts, you know, our Denver Post sports page, which is over 40,000 now, is bigger than our primary TV competitor, Channel 9 News. We do the same thing for Twitter. So we have dominant Twitter accounts in our marketplace. We've gone out there. We've got a tremendous focus behind our institutional accounts. And then we also have, which we would consider like our newsroom account or our business account, our breaking news account, those types of things. But we also have some pretty significant journalism presence that cover their beat of individual writers that we also monitor. We get reports to measure your success. We get a report now every month that can tell us the top performers in every market. These are the people that, you know, sent the most tweets. These are the people that gained the most followers. These are the people that had the highest engagement. These are the people, and we have the inverse. These are the people that didn't do so well. So how do we get the people who didn't do so well to learn from those who did very well? How do we make that message spread from the outside in?
And you're talking about individual accounts, like a
individual
reporter's
accounts.
Twitter
So if you
account.
have a beat reporter, for example, in Denver, one of your better beat reporters is probably Andrew Vong on business or Lindsey Jones on Broncos, and they do a phenomenal job. You may have somebody who, I'm gonna throw at travel, but Kyle Wagner actually does a really nice job. But say your travel writer is not getting that same level of engagement. It's how do you get those people in a room and talk together and see what lessons there are to be learned so that you can share across, so that those who may feel uncomfortable or may not be engaging to the level that you would hope they would be, can get better and learn and do that and learn from their peers, not be a corporate down approach where you say, hey, you know what, you just have to send 20 more tweets today. That's ridiculous. Learn from your peers. How are they doing? What are they doing? What's appropriate? So one of the things that we do, and I'll wrap up here shortly, but we also go out and look in our marketplace. How do we grow our audience through people who are also very popular in our market? Like we use the Denver Broncos. We have a Facebook fandemonium. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this guy named Peyton Manning. We're kind of excited about him. Not so much last week.
Year it was Tebow.
Right. Last year, well, we sent Tebow over to Jim Brady. He can have him. So, but this is one of the ones that we do where we actually go out, we engage advertisers. These types of contests for us. The first one that we did when we ran it, not only did we charge money for this and basically have an advertiser pay for our growth, but the very first week that we ran this contest, we picked up 10,000 Broncos fans. Well, is that worthwhile to us to have 10,000 Broncos fans? Considering Broncos is one of our primary beats and can sometimes make up 30 to 40% of our traffic if it's a game day, you betcha. This is a tremendous audience to go after because we have probably more content about the Broncos than anybody else in the United States does, in the world. So this is a big piece for us, and this is about our editorial staff working with our marketing staff, working with our operations staff, working with the sales staff to create an opportunity where we can then go in and say, let's increase our audience 10,000 Broncos fans in a week, and then let's figure out what the editorial strategy is underneath that so that we can make sure that those people stay engaged. I think one of the speakers was talking earlier about a like being the first kiss, right? So how do we take them down and turn that from a first kiss into a lasting relationship with these people? So, and then once we've got this audience, and somebody might have come to us through the Broncos, or they might have come through us through another channel partner or through another affinity group, then what happens when you have really big, impactful news events? Is your newsroom staffed up to do it? We think ours is getting there pretty well. And now that you have this audience, what can you do with it? I mean, on the Colorado wildfires, there's a couple of big stories that have come into our lap in the last 2 months, and they're unfortunate circumstances, but we were able to serve the community in a way that we would not have been able to 2 years ago. We were 2 or 3 years ago. We were able, if you can see here on the this Ryan Parker tweet on the Aurora shooting, you know, he's actually going through. Here's Denver Post talking to Pam down on the bottom. She says, "Yes, I was there." Now we got a lead out of that. We got more color than the next guys did on our story. We got more information. We got background. We got, and there were dozens and dozens of examples of us doing that and executing there. And all of our journalists were trying to source and give information in that same sort of way. In the wildfires, as an example, we turned into a community support mechanism for people who were displaced on the road, on mobile, didn't have access to a computer, who can't wait for the next print edition, and aren't able to get to a browser because they're in their car standing outside a wildfire area figuring out whether they need to evacuate their family or not. And so by having that audience that we're working towards, you know, part of the success is the monetization, part of the success is the traffic and the ongoing engagement with our readers, and then part of the success is being able to serve your community in a way that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do, because now you have an audience of a certain size that makes it impactful. So that's my piece right now, and I think we're going to open this up for Q&A. So thank you guys very much.
Okay, so when you talked about measuring the success of individuals and saying, oh, this person did well, do you use a particular tool for that, or is that just you following 4,000 journals?
Yeah, so that was one of the biggest things when we got to the digital first media and we started looking at how we all work together, was how do we take lessons learned not just in Denver, but how do you take a lesson learned in San Jose and apply it to Denver, or in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and vice versa, right? And so Brattleboro is one of our markets, and so we had to actually build tools to go in there and look at how we would do that in a way so that you didn't have to automatically go in and do that.
We're all commenting about your mustard stain.
I know.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. At lunch, I spilled a big mustard stain right before I was about to walk up here, so I apologize. But part of understanding, you know, there are stats and they're vanity stats, right? So in my opinion, the number of followers you have is a vanity stat. It doesn't really mean that much unless you're engaging those followers. So you have to figure out how to sift through just the raw numbers that management may be looking at, saying how many followers did you get, how many referrals did you get, and look through that to figure out where the quality is actually coming in, where the engagement is coming in, and then how to accelerate that along with those other stats, because, you know, fans and followers are important, but they aren't the whole picture.
So do you say, are you using some kind of software, or are you?
So we actually have custom developed a piece of software to do that. There are, if anybody's looking to do that, I can point you in the right direction. It's, for us, we have thousands of journalists. It'd be easier for an individual newsroom to do this because you can use some of the popular tools to do that. For us, it was too difficult because the scope was too large.
David, so Gannett and a lot of companies are experimenting with paywalls or heading down that road. How does that change the measurement of social media success or strategy? Are you trying to accomplish something different or are you?
I mean, I think there are certainly some things that have changed a little bit, like, in terms of philosophy, especially with, like, Twitter. Solely because I think we had some reporters who, like our Titans reporter, is by far like the most widely popular reporter that we have. But I mean, he was, you know, tweeting all this news just straight out, just Twitter. And it's like, okay, well, we need to think about this in a different way. Like, if it's a really competitive situation, then, you know, it's all right. But it's trying to get the links out as opposed to just, you know, giving away all this for free, because it's important. You know, it's a part of our business model, and so we're trying to make money. I think also, you know, in terms of Twitter as well, you know, we used to have reporters who would live tweet meetings, which I think we still do here and there, but now we started doing more Cover It Live. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the software. We'll just sort of set up a Cover It Live. So
it's on your site, it's embedded.
Right, it's embedded on a page. It's almost more interactive, I would say, in terms of, because you can, you know, reply back, I think, quicker because there's an app, and so, but it's also, you know, making sure that we're not just, you know, we think our content is worth paying for, and so in terms of giving it away for free, in certain aspects, I think that philosophy has certainly changed. Mm-hmm. But it also, you know, when it comes to social media, those links are what they call foul balls, so they will never kick you. You will never hit the wall on social media.
Yep, got it. Yep. Okay. Yep. So, any questions that we have from the audience? Are people in the audience, are you guys measuring not only your brand social media accounts, but what your individual reporters do? I'm really curious about that. Or do you have that same goal where everybody needs to be on social media in the first place? Do you guys have that goal?
I think mostly. I mean, yeah. I think not every reporter, but most reporters are on social media. I think it's important, and I think it certainly takes, you know, some of the ones who've been there longer. It's a little more of a stretch for them. But yeah, we've had a lot of success with certain, you know, reporters especially. But I think it's a goal for sure, because I mean it's important. I mean, you want to be where your audience is. You want to be able to get the information out to them on various platforms, and so I mean, Facebook, Twitter, it's essential.
I wanted to know about your digital ninja school thing.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was really great. Is it working?
Yeah. It's yeah.
Go.
We launched this pilot project in Connecticut. With the I think the feeling that most of us have come to this feeling in the newsroom where we're smaller newsrooms than we used to be. We never really ever put a lot of focus or had a lot of time or had big budgets for training anyway. And so we're faced with this the need to rapidly change, and this huge amount of skill sets that even from the publisher level and the editor level down, you need to learn. And so we came up with a very hokey name and a very martial arts style structure where you would earn belts for 5 different areas: digital publishing, social media, blogging, video, and data. And instead, in recognition of all the open source tools that are out there, and all the open source resources and training resources at conferences like this, and everyone's PowerPoint is posted and links posted. We just started compiling all of that at digitalninjaschool.com, which is anyone can use. And instead of paying trainers to come in, no offense to anyone who's in the training business, sorry to take money out of your pocket, we put in a budget where we would pay you $100 for the first belt, $200 for the second, $300 for the third, $400 for the fourth, and $1,000 for the fifth. So that because it's not only just offering the resources, but it's getting reporters to feel like, on top of everything else, that they want to take the time to train, that there's some reward for it and stuff like that. It's working, but it's still, we're faced with that issue of when do you have the time to do this? So that has been the bump that we've hit, actually, and that's what we're trying to figure out.
Can you all talk about standards and expectations for social media use among reporters? Is it wise to set standards and expectations? How do you articulate them? And just some general thoughts about that topic.
Well, as you've seen on ours, we have those 3 rules, right? So, but that allows for a lot of experimentation. That being said, have we messed up in the past? We have. I can point you to specific examples where standards weren't met, and so I think that there's this ongoing process of learning and this kind of peer feedback to say, yeah, this was good, this wasn't so good, but it's not necessarily a top-down strategy of, don't do this, always tweet with links, don't, because while those things are good, and we do have guidelines for, this is how a tweet should be formed. It should be less than 100 characters. It should have a link on it. Use a hashtag when you can. Those are more learning tools necessarily than hard and fast kind of rules or standards. So I think, it's just don't say anything that I think Matthew Ingram kind of summed it up best. It was like, his was like, don't be stupid. Like, that's what we're trying to get into our guys, but at the same time give them the flexibility to engage, because the problem with standards has been that if you set them too tightly, then journalists don't experiment, they don't try new things, then you don't learn. All you're doing is operating by a standards-based system, and they don't really ever connect to the community that well. Nobody gets an emotional attachment to that beat or that writer or that account because it's too robotic.
But David, where do you draw the line between, where's the line between X reporter, you haven't tweeted since June, what the hell, to you haven't tweeted enough today?
Right, right. I mean, it's a good point. I think it really depends on the beat. I mean, I think it's tough to, you can't set a blanket like you have to tweet.
Some newspapers have. Some newspapers.
Well, I don't think you can do that for every reporter.
It seems a little odd.
When it comes, when it's something that people are really engaged with, whether it's metro government or sports or even restaurants. Those are the ones that really people, I feel like, are really engaged. Where there's certain other ones. It's like, okay, well, maybe not as often, because you don't want to force it. It isn't, and it shouldn't become an RSS feed of just like every story you've ever posted. I think that's where you want to be able to engage and sort of show a face to your reporter. And so, a little bit of more of a conversation and not just just a constant stream of links.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Karen Magnuson from the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle in New York. And it's been kind of interesting to watch the back and forth on Twitter between ONA and APME. And Steve Buttrey wrote a blog about the contrasting views about social media between the two conferences.
He would. He did it probably in the last 20 minutes.
He
right?
did, yeah. But it's all based on a tweet that was sent out about Liz Sidoti from the AP saying that social media is a time suck and threatening young journalists' understanding of reporting basics. And then apparently a number of folks here from the conference did respond saying that they didn't agree necessarily with her contention. But I don't know if Liz is in the room, but what would you say to Liz about that statement?
Good one.
Here's what I would say, is the audience is fundamentally changing, okay? I get that there has to be the reporting standards. We have to report correctly. We have to accurately state the facts. You have to do fact checking. I think that if you play too loose and too fast, which is some of the area where some journalists really got into trouble, I think initially because, but people who just retweet without reading the stories or do some things or imply endorsement. I think you have to be smart about that and operate like a journalist would anywhere, right? A journalist on TV or a journalist on Twitter or a journalist in print, or they should be adhering to a certain set of journalistic standards. To say that it's a time suck, though, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that in terms of the fact that, frankly, this is the way that audiences moving forward are expecting to consume the content. So if we don't embrace that, there's peril, right? And I would also say that in a lot of instances, it actually helps our journalists, as you can see in the example I just put up, where we said, hey, was anybody there at the Aurora shooting? And we had people coming back to us and telling us our stories in the middle of the night when there's no way we're going to send a team of journalists out to interview all of these people. We created connections with dozens of people that allowed us to fill out that story, and our newsroom did a tremendous job in covering that story in a way that they probably would not have been able to do had they not been that fluent on social media. So I wouldn't agree. Yeah.
Someone pointed out, and I'm not trying to pick on Liz or anything, that, or actually Rex in one of the other sessions today said, don't speak to social media and strategy and stuff like that unless you have tried it and used those same tools and experienced it, because you really can't speak to it. And someone pointed out that Liz has tweeted once.
Well, and having not been, I want to just, back up with a little asterisk by what I just said, is that I didn't hear her whole speech, so I don't know whether she came back with a quote behind that said, unless you're doing it this way or that way or the other. So
she's got her reporters tweeting, so I mean, there's obviously some value in it. Yeah. Great. Anything else?
Are there some sort of metrics that you use to say this is worthwhile or that is worthwhile? And do you go back and look at what you're doing and say, let's not do this again, or we should do more of something like this?
Have you tried projects like the fall thing that didn't work?
Right. Yeah, I think we have. I mean, I think there are certain things that I think it comes with time. It just comes with practice. I mean, like for example, like photos on Facebook will always do well. So if you want to get someone into a story on Facebook or sort of get them engaged, images are always better. Certain things like that sort of stand out, and it's like, okay, and posing a question that's open. I mean, it's sort of simple, but it's like posing an open-ended question with a story that might resonate, and not just the stream of links. I mean, I think those are sort of certain little things you can sort of pick up, but I mean, in terms of metrics, I mean, every post we get, you see the metrics. So you can definitely develop a pattern if you pay attention. You're like, oh, well, clearly this is, and time of day, you know, in terms of an audience, you know, I feel like our Facebook audience is more female. So you'll think about certain topics that will resonate maybe better. And then sometimes, you know, it'll be something that's sort of everyone. Like the biggest story we've had in 6 months was about a Little League team, which I never would have thought would ever have happened, but sometimes things just happen like that way.
Well, one of the things that we note is after a while, your journalists who are posting these accounts, it's not necessarily that you, and I guess it depends on how much news you're creating and how much news you're overseeing that's coming through the newsroom. But you get kind of an intuition on what you know is going to play well on social media, what's going to engage well, and what's going to drive traffic well. And so maybe instead of not writing about certain things, because certain things are obviously very important, there's always been beats that have been smaller than other beats. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not something that you need to cover. It just means that we know that, like the Little League team's probably a great example, because we know that people like very positive, like homespun stories on social media. They like reading about positive things. They like something they can click like on. And so a Little League team that's knocking it out of the park, I guess, but I think that there's, you know that's going to play well. You know that something that's a hot topic political thing like the Mitt Romney video is probably going to generate a lot of back and forth interest, and you just have this intuition like, okay, this is going to be big on social media. Whereas other things, a city council meeting, you have this intuition after a while that says, no, we don't necessarily need to let's hold off on that and see what else we can promote. It's just using the right bait for the audience to bring them in, I think, depending on the market.
I just wanted to add that there's a Facebook for Journalists page that has some really great tips along that line, if you want to read more about it.
Well, great. Thank you very much, everyone.